session. Sorry for being a bit late. I had some internet issues. So I'm hoping you guys are able to see me and hear me well now. You can send me your questions in the comments below. I will be addressing them as for the next 20 minutes as I'm doing this live. So I already have few questions which I have here, and I'll be addressing them based on what I've got. So before that, I would like to welcome everybody who's new here. Thank you so much for joining. We've had almost 100 new people in the group. So I'm very excited for you to join and learn this wonderful medium. If you have any questions anytime, you can obviously put it in the comments below and I'll be happy to help. Okay. And I also wanted to share that every Thursdays is when I go live. So Thursdays would be a good time to post your questions with whatever you're working or anything or any struggles that you may be having. You can post it down in the comments and I'll be happy to answer any and all questions. The next thing I wanted to share was if you have a painting and if you want it to be critiqued, I don't do them a lot, but you can put it down in the comments and I'll be happy to go through it and give you a brief critique on what you could do better so that it can help you in your own painting process. All right. So before going to the questions, I also would like to say that I'm working on the brushwork technical sheet or tips sheet. I know many of you uh, selected uh, in terms of painting brushworks and painting with confidence and with much more looser styles. So I'm making a tip sheet so that it can help you or and guide you in your own painting journey. So I'll be releasing the tip sheet either today or tomorrow. So if you have already signed up for my mailing list, you would have already got a link, or you can just say that you want it in the comments below, and I'll be sharing you the link for the tip sheet. So moving on to the questions, I wanted to talk briefly about brushwork, like even before we understand different concepts about values, color, edges, techniques. Brushwork comes very much before all of that because the moment we start to paint, we have to know how to hold the brush and how to load the brush and how to effectively transfer the paint onto the canvas. So that's the very first thing that's mostly neglected, and many artists just move on to the elements of painting like color, values, edges, and I think it's not the right approach because all the elements are interdependent on one another. You cannot isolate one and study one while eliminating the rest and coming back to it later. And for example, brushwork affects color, color affects values, values affect edges, edges in turn affect brushwork. So all of them go hand in hand, but all these elements, they come at a much later stage. So the very first stage would be to understanding the letters or alphabets or words, right? So that's the first thing that comes when you're learning a new language. So brushworks is the very beginning of learning a new language. So I wanted to briefly talk about how you hold and load the brush. In terms of holding, I would highly recommend holding either to the middle of the brush or on the very far end of the brush. Many of them, as I see, as you're beginning your journey, you hold it in the very tip. This usually comes from drawing, from any drawing experience that you've had, and you're translating that to the oil painting experience as well. So you have to eliminate that. You have to have the way you hold either in the middle or on the very far tip of the brush. That's one. The next thing I want to talk about the amount of paint that you load. Many of us, we don't load enough. It's not about uh, taking a lot of paint. It's not, because I understand that many of you would be worried about how much paint they're going to waste and things like that. But I feel an effective brushwork and the effective loading of the brush is actually much more uh, paint consuming than if you didn't know how to load the brush. So you have to understand that you have to take in the exact amount of load every time you go on your palette. And the way you do that is just assume or just think that your brush is a spoon from which you eat your food, right? So you don't just graze the plate, you actually scoop it out. You need to be able to scoop the paint from underneath the paint what's on your palette. So you must actually be scooping out paint and having it on this side of your brush. It's almost like having a layer of paint on the side of the brush. So you have the bristles, you have the layer of paint, and then you have your canvas. So you need to be comfortable in loading that much amount of paint on your brush. And once you do that, you can see that most of the work is done by the paint and the pressure of your stroke. The bristles hardly do any work. They are just there to hold the paint. All right. So the amount of pressure that you apply will inform how much paint has to go off the brush. Okay, so that's very important. So we learned how to hold the brush. That's number one. Number two is scoop the paint off the palette as much as you can. And you don't have to mix the colors every time. Like, I don't premix my colors beforehand. I go to the palette every single time that I want to mix a paint. So this way you get better at color mixing. This is the easiest and the fastest way to learn how to mix colors. Not by doing color charts, not by going over crazy color theory. All you need to know is that there are three primary colors, and if you mix two of them, you are going to get the secondary colors, and after that you get the tertiary colors. And you need to experiment this, and because it's your voice that's going to come out, right? So nobody can teach you, even though they can teach you how to mix the colors, but they cannot tell you what exactly the colors that you need for your oil painting. So just learn the very basics of oil color mixing. That's all you need. I think you already know it. So after that, just try to mix the colors more as you do your painting. So you need to be at your palette 50% of the time, and the remaining 50% of the time to be actually on the canvas. So you have to have the half and half ratio between being on the canvas and being on your palette, because if you're not, then you're just using up the paint what's already on the canvas. You're not getting fresh paint, right? So you need to get fresh, vibrant paint from the palette as much as you can. So I hope that's clear now. So again, to reiterate, we have discussed how to hold the brush, how how to load the brush, and then how to apply the paint what's on the brush. So these three are the very important and the basic criteria to have a good and solid foundation for any oil painting. So before you even go into values and color and edges and composition, understand that brushwork allows you to learn all of this. It's not the other way around. So use this as a basic foundation from which you can learn the other stuff. Okay. So those were basically the questions that I got as to how to hold and how to apply the paint. So I wanted to share that as much as I could. So if you have any other questions, meanwhile, please let me know. And also, whatever you have understood and whatever you have gained from this experience, just add it in the comments as to what was the takeaway from this live, so that others will also be able to understand what you have understood. So that's the best way to put it out as to what you have comprehended from what I spoke, and others will also be able to share their unique perspective of what they learned. So just type in the comments as to what you have learned from today's live. And the very last thing I wanted to share was the enrollments have begun for my course, which is the Creative Leap Academy. So if you are a beginner oil painter and want to paint with confidence and find your unique voice in a very short amount of time, this is the course for you. So instead of wasting years of trial and error, this is the shortest way and the easiest way, where I have broken down all the concepts with lessons and demos and me going over your goals. This is the best way for you to fast track your oil painting journey. So if this is something that you are interested in, please let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to get on a call with you and discuss how it works and what your goals are, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and we can go from there. So I hope this was a valuable time for you. If you have any other questions during the week, please let me know in the comments, and I'll be able to help you as well. All right. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend and happy painting. See you.